is Nadine and welcome to Hop Along Studio. So today we're going to be talking about foil, and more importantly, foils that you can use from around your house that can be used in your creative projects. I love foil. I have a collection of very expensive foils that I love to use that are color flipping and do all sorts of interesting things. But what if you want to go a bit of a cheaper route? Or let's say you don't have the budget for some of the more expensive foils. There are things you can find in your house that work just as well. My two favorites are aluminum foil and this metal ducting tape. So in this video, I want to show you basically the differences, the pros and cons of each, and different ways you can use them in your creative projects. So this tin tape I got from Home Depot. You can really get from any hardware store. It's in the ducting section of the hardware store, and it's used for basically adding tin tape to your ducts. And what's nice about it, it's backed, and you can basically pull off the backing. And so this is a very sticky tape. It wants to stick to anything that it can grab. So to get a consistent look with this, what I tend to do is I'll start from one edge and I pull tight this way. It does make a difference. It seems like it helps with getting a really good, smooth finish with this tape. And what I find is I don't always get it smooth. You can see I have a couple lines in here. So I usually just try to smooth it out as much as I can. And then I'm going to add in the next layer. And you can see that here I ended up being at a little bit of an angle. That's a hard thing with this tin tape, is I find that sometimes it's hard to get it perfectly straight. I tend to overlap a little bit. That's going to leave a tiny bit of a line, but it means your chances of actually getting a really smooth layer of tape is higher. So you can see there, I did it again, where I ended up having a little bit of space there. And that's okay. I'm going to fix that later on, and I'll show you how you can fix it if you do make mistakes like that. Because it would be easier just to have the whole thing unfurled, but the hard thing with that is that it tends to want to stick to itself and stick to other things, and it's hard to get a really consistent result. Any areas that it's kind of sticking up, just rub your hand along it. Try to get rid of as many of those tiny little lines as you can, and just continue using the same technique to get the tape on the rest of the paper. And if you choose to overlap it a lot more, you'll notice there is a line there where the tape underneath it is poking through. So try to get it close as you can, but you don't want to have issues like this. So once you're done it, then you have to pull it off of your surface. I would suggest, if at all possible, do this on something like a silicone mat, just so you can pull it off decently easily. It's really strong. It's really strong tape, and that's a great thing. But it also has its disadvantages. You can get fairly close to the edge and just pull the tape off. But you have to be careful not to get all the way to the edge, because it might pull it off the front as well. And then I usually just take the edges and just wrap them over. I find that's easier than trying to cut it with scissors. You can cut this with scissors, it's not a problem. I just find that it is pretty sticky, so I prefer just having a little bit more extra backing to it. The stronger I can make my sheet of paper, the better. This one I'm using 110-pound cardstock. I wouldn't suggest going any bit lighter. I just find it doesn't hold up quite as well. You could possibly just add this tin tape straight to your project, but as you can see with just how sticky it is, it can be a little hard to control. So if you're looking to cut out things that are really fine, like if I took this and I cut this into a shape, trying to pull it back on a small piece, it's probably not too hard just to pull it back. And let's say you made this a circle shape and adding it to your paper, but it is going to bend and move, which is why I like backing it onto a piece of much stronger paper before cutting it or embossing it or doing anything with it. And to fix that mistake in the center, I basically just took another piece of tin tape and I'm just going to apply it across the surface. And so you can see that by just pulling it off instead of having it across, it's gotten quite unmanageable. So the longer the sheet, the harder that's going to be. So I'm just adding that on top. Yes, it adds more lines, but it's a way of salvaging if you do make a mistake like I did there. So tin tape is very easy to supply. It has a really nice look to it, but it does leave the lines. So it depends on how much you care that you're seeing lines on your project. The other option is you just stick to something just the width of your tin tape that often doesn't work for me. I find that I'm usually looking for something a little bit bigger. So that's why I'm fine with just adding a few lines, because by the time I'm done adding all of my layers on top of it, you're not even gonna see it. So the next option for this is aluminum foil. And aluminum foil is great because you have a dull side and you also have a shiny side. Because I'm close to the end of the roll, this is a lot more bumpy than would necessarily be the rest of the time. But I just wanted to show you how it works. The first thing I'm going to show you how to use is art glitter glue. So this is just any glue that you might have on hand that you use for your crafts, for your artwork. Like, it's pretty much just a white glue. And what I'm going to do is just take it and just run it out to the edges. And this is where if you have a magazine, it's nice to sometimes do this on a magazine because it's going to help you get a much more even surface, and you're not going to have as many issues with it sticking to the surface below. I'm just going to cut a section of my aluminum foil. I usually cut it a lot bigger than what I need just to make sure that it goes on nice and smoothly. And I'm just adding that to my piece of paper. And this is where you could go with something like a credit card and gently just go across it to try to help get rid of some of those bumpy areas. But you'll notice I did leave little tiny lines in the foil itself. So you'll probably be able to get a better result with this if you're not at the end of the roll like I am, but I just wanted to show you the basic concept. And then what I usually do is just flip that over. You'll notice there is glue on the sides. I just let it all dry and then I'll cut around the edges. The other option is you use something like a gel medium, and I will do this on the shiny side, and you don't need a ton of it. I've also done this in larger pieces as well, but what I found is that I tend to rip it with my paper cutter. So I will show you a couple examples where I did rip it, and this is why I prefer to just use a palette knife just to get an even coat with gel gloss and do it to the size of the card that I want to create. And I'm going to now do the shiny side. So do the same thing. You want to press it down as smoothly as you can. And this is quite wrinkled just because I am using the end of the roll. I should have probably grabbed a new roll for this demonstration, but that's okay. Sometimes I like having a little bit of extra texture to this. And you can see that by using a gift card, you can get a lot of those wrinkles out. Just make sure you don't use the end of the roll like I am. Use a newer part of the roll and you won't have as many issues. That has a little bit of the gel that went past it, so I'm laying that aside to dry. The other option is you can just go all in with the wrinkles and let the wrinkles be seen. You can use either glue for this. You just want to make sure you put a lot of it down and there's a pretty even thick coat on your surface. What I'm doing with this one, oh, that's the end of my roll. That's why it was so incredibly wrinkly. It was pretty much out. You can basically create ridges and areas of texture on your page or on your card. And this is a great way of just adding a little bit of extra texture. So you can do it perfectly smooth or you can do it extremely messily, and either way really works well. So we want these to dry fully before we cut off the edge pieces and we move on to the next step. So now that these have dried, I've cut around them with my scissors. The reason you want to cut around them with your scissors is if you use a paper cutter and it hasn't glued down properly, or it basically grabs it instead of cutting through it, you're going to get areas like this. And that's always really disappointing. So I use regular scissors just to cut around this, and that's part of the reason I made these to the size of the card that I want to make. It just makes life easier. I don't have to worry about ripping. And so with this one, I did it shiny. This one, I did it dull. Again, because I did use the end of the roll, you're not getting as smooth of a finish as you normally would if you're using the beginning of the roll of aluminum foil. But one advantage that they have is compared to these ones where you can see the lines, these ones do not have lines. So you can see that just by using a couple things that we have lying around, aluminum foil and tape, you can create a multitude of different backgrounds. And next week I'm going to be showing you how you can take these backgrounds and alter them and change them and bring it to another level. There's another thing you can do, which is adding it in your art journal. And later this month, I'm going to show you how you can basically turn this into an art journaling page. Because it might not feel really intuitive adding something so shiny into your art journal, but it can work really well for creating something really interesting and dynamic. blank for your art journal. So I wanted to share a sneak peek with you about what we're going to be creating next week. And this is basically a project using the foils that we've made today. I wanted to show you how you could alter them, how you can change them and use them in different ways in your creative projects. And if you want to know when that video is released, just subscribe to my channel, hit that notification button, and that will let you know when that video is released. And if you've enjoyed this video, if you could like it and just leave a comment below about what you've enjoyed about this video, I would love to start a conversation with you. And if you have any questions about what I've shared today, I would love to answer any questions you might have. And so for the next video, I thought I would leave it to the algorithm to choose something from my playlist that it thinks you would enjoy the most. So click on the next video and I will see you there.